So I did a breakdown on many are called, few are chosen, to begin to reveal how Yahushua was explaining to and prophesying to us that the many, which is Arabic tribes, were called, and the root word of call in Aramaic is kara, and that's the root, kara means call, and that's the root word of Quran. And few in Hebrew is mayat, which is going to point to the Karaite Israelites whom he was speaking to. They were present at Matthew 24. This is Matthew 22. And in Matthew 24, he was letting them know in 70 AD that the temple would fall. And at the fall of the temple, these Karaite Israelites became the few. They became the Israelites that went into Egypt. And then the other word for few is Qatan, which is the name of Joktan, who is the purest branch of Arabic tribes, who ended up becoming one of the Arabic tribes who was never polytheistic. And the Karaite Jews and these Joktan Israelites end up becoming the ones that answered the Qur'an or the Quran during 600 AD, during the time of Muhammad. But this guy, not even this guy, I'm not going to do that. Cliff, I'm gonna tag him on Facebook. He was telling me that I'm not being contextually correct because this was speaking of the kingdom, and I'm telling him that yeah, this is speaking of the kingdom, and you don't know the context because you don't know what you're speaking about. So this gonna be a little lengthy, y'all, but it's gonna be worth it, right? So I began to explain that Karaite Jews fled to Egypt in 70 AD. So these are quotes from different websites. After destruction of the temple, many Israelites, including Karaites, settled in Egypt, and later, after the Jewish expulsion from Spain, more Sephardic and Karaite Jews migrated to Egypt. Another quote, the Karaite movement, which emphasizes the literal interpretation of the Hebrew Bible, emerged later primarily in the 7th to 9th century in the regions like Baghdad. Why is this a literal interpretation of the Bible? Because in Matthew 24, Yahushua began to state that not one stone of the temple would remain. Let's continue to read another quote. The destruction of the second temple in 70 AD led to significant Israelite diaspora, with people migrating to different parts of the Roman Empire and beyond. Another quote. Some Israelites, including Karaites, initially showed interest in Muhammad's message and even converted to Islam. This would be a revert. Islam is literally the participial form of salam. You see the root SLM. So this has been here from the beginning. Another quote. Some Israelites produced oral counter histories that retold the tradition of Muslim narrative of Muhammad and Gabriel and the revelation of the Quran, suggesting that the Israelites wrote the Quran and gave it to Muhammad. Thank you. Thank you. The Israelites came out to let it be made known. They wrote the Quran and they gave it to Muhammad. And we're going to continue to read to see how. Another quote. The Quran and Islamic tradition convey repeatedly that Muhammad had nothing to do with the Quran, the composition of the Quran. He was simply a messenger who conveyed God's message, not his own. Another quote. This is the writing or kitab concerning the story of Muhammad that occurred in Sasaret al-Ghanamon, which is Jabal al-Hadith. He moved to Sarsa, the Hijaz, because of the monk who lived in Balquin. This is in southern Transjordan, on a pillar called the Sign of the Sun. This was an Israelite scholar who appeared before Muhammad and told him how his matter was devised a book for him. And why would this be? Thanks for asking. This is due to the fact that Khadijah, Muhammad's wife, was a Joktan Arab. She was a black woman. And her godfather was actually a Nestorian. A Nestorian was basically an Ebionite and an Essene who believed that Yahushua was a prophet. He believed in the Torah and all of these other things. They just happened to be Arab. The Hebrews are actually Arab. We are Afro-Asiatic, out of Shem, out of Eber. So let's continue. Another quote. They inscribed the name of each of them in the Surah of his Quran and wrote secretly and incomprehensible. And I quote, thus did the stages of Israel devise to the wicked, It is very important to know that this is lining up with Isaiah 42, and I'm going to get that as I continue to read. So these Israelite prophets who wrote the Quran began to write this inscription in Hebrew, deaf and dumb. Let's read. They wrote Elam, which means dumb. And then the quote says, whoever comprehends this book takes hold of it and informs someone of the nations of the world of its secret context is cursed by the mouth of God. This is due to the fact that this word is for the Israelites and the Arab, the mixed mingled multitude, are the polytheistic or the Gentile nations that was to be gone after, not the Gentiles who Paul was going after. Let's continue to read. Muhammad being prophesied as the deaf and dumb prophet in Isaiah 42. Hence why the Karaite Israelites wrote in the Quran, dumb. Behold my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. These are the polytheistic pagan nations. He shall not cry nor lift up his voice, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. I am Ahia, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images. He went into the Kaaba to do away with the graven images. He also went into the Israelite communities and in the Levant and Syria, Canaan, all of that, to do away with their groves, which is why a lot of Israelites did not like him. Behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Before the spring forth, I bring them unto you. So this is a new song, a new law. When we begin to look into Shiloh, we'll begin to see that Shiloh, who was coming after the scepter departed from Judah, who was the lawgiver, which is Yehoshua. Shiloh doesn't only mean peaceful one or tranquil. It represents the placenta in Hebrew, which is a birthing forth of newness. Let's continue to read. A new song and his praise from the end of the earth. Yet they shall go down to the sea and all that is therein, the isles and the inhabitants thereof. So if this be true, this should mean that the message of Muhammad should reach the isles. And the isles would be the dispersed, where the Israelites were dispersed in Assyrian captivity in 722 BC, as well as Babylonian captivity in 586 BC, again, Persian captivity in 333 BC, Greek captivity in around 100 BC, and then the Roman captivity that is still going on till this day. It begins to say, let the wilderness and the cities thereof lift up their voices, that the villages of Kedar doth inhabit. Let the inhabitants of the rock, let them shout from the top of the mountain. So Kedar is the son of Ishmael. And this is the seed line that Muhammad was born from. It's essential to know that David began to say in Psalms 120 that he went into Kedar, and that there were warriors there. He went in there trying to teach Islam, trying to teach peace, but they wanted war. Why? Because they were mostly pagan. Let them give glory unto another and declare his praise in the isles. I have long time holding my peace, my salam, my shalom, my Islam. I have been still and refrained myself. Now I require like a travailing woman. You must remember that the travailing woman is also seen in the book of Revelation. And if I really wanted to get into it, I could show y'all Muhammad at least from Deuteronomy all the way to Revelation. Definitely can. I got mad precepts on this. So let's continue to read. I will destroy and devour at once. Hear ye deaf, and look ye blind, that ye may see. Who was blind but my servant? Or deaf as my messenger that I sent? This is precepting what the Karaite Israelites begin to write in Hebrew in the Quran. Who was blind as he that is perfect. Perfect in Hebrew is mushlam. And it is also the word tamim. And tamim still goes back to a word that means salam. So when we begin to continue, he that is perfect and blind as the Lord's servant, seeing many things, but thou observest not. Openeth the ears, but he heareth not. The Lord well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. It's essential to know that the Torah is mentioned in the Quran so many times, and that's the law. But this is the people robbed and spoiled, They are all of them snared in holes and are hid in prison houses, for they are prey and none delivered for a spoil, and none has said restore. Remember in the book of Revelation when it begins to say that the people was climbing in caves and climbing in holes, still worshiping their idols, although someone was coming attempting to convert them, and they continued on with their idol worship. This is Bible. So this is Isaiah 42, 1 through 2, 8 through 12, 14, 18 through 22. Let's continue. The prophet will bring a new song. Shiloh is not only peaceful one, but one who represents newness and to come after Judah, which is Yehoshua's tribe, as a lawgiver. While Shiloh is often associated with the biblical place name and interpreted as peace or tranquility, there is a connection to the Hebrew word for placenta, which is Shilah. And this is going to be the Shin, Lamed, Yod, Hey, which can also interpret it as a birth of a new era or a great leader. In some interpretations, Shiloh is seen as a title for a messianic, referring to the peace bringer or the rest giver, which is why Yehoshua began to say that another Menachem, Menachem, or Menaiah, Menachem, or Ham, comforter, will come. This means peace. This means rest. When we begin to look at the name Muhammad, it shares the exact same root as Menachem, whether you spell his name with the CH or whether you just spell his name with the H. Let's continue. Daniel 7, 27 and 28. And the kingdom and dominion and greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Hither there is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cognizance much troubled me, and my countenance changing me, but I kept the matter. So this is the Byzantine Empire, okay? That is being prophesied to end up being taken over by a kingdom that will last forever. It's essential to know that the statue in Daniel was representing the different captivities that I previously mentioned. You have your Assyrian captivity, 722 BC, Babylonian 586 BC, your Persian 333 BC, then your Greek in about 100 BC. Then when you get down to Rome, it's going to be those two legs. Then when you see those 10 toes, that's going to be the Ottoman Empire. And this is when the star and the moon end up entering into Islam in 1453. So those 10 toes of the Byzantine Empire was defeated by Islam. It's very important to know that this is the kingdom that will last forever. Some Israelite communities in Syria and other parts of the Levant who were discontent with the Byzantine rule reportedly welcomed the Arabs as liberators. After Muhammad sent Joktan Arabs to Medina, where the Karaite Israelites were, the Umayyad Caliphate followed him there after embracing Islam. So this polytheistic caliphate that was actually known for killing Bilal the Danite, who fled from Spain and Portugal and under the Nubian. He was a prince of one of the Sheba dynasties, and he fled into West Africa. Where you had Muhammad, where you had the Medina, the Mendi, the Soniki, all of them were down there being Islamic. And so he came down there, and the Umayyad Caliphate followed him, and they beat him to death while he quoted the Shema in Arabic. He began to say, Ahad Allah, which means one power, that there is one God. So as I'm going to read again, after Muhammad sent Joktan Arabs, this is Qatan, this is the few, to Medina, where the Karaite Israelites, this is Mayats, this is the few that were in Egypt. Scripture begins to teach us that there was 5 streams running dry shod out of Egypt for these people to be able to come in and to inhabit. The Ansar, or the helpers, those who bring victory, are the local inhabitants of Medina who took the Islamic prophet Muhammad and his followers into their homes when they immigrated from Mecca due to Hijr. It's important to know that Mecca was polytheistic. Medina was mostly monotheistic, with a lot of Arabic tribes coming from Eber, Jotan, Selah, so on and so forth, who were already monotheistic before Abraham was even born. Then you have some Abrahamic monotheistics who never followed Moses, who never taught that Yehoshua was the son of God or the Messiah. It's essential to know that these Karaite Israelites that was present in 70 AD who helped Muhammad, they were against the Christian Jews, who would be the rabbinical Jews. They were against the Christians, period. They did not teach what they taught. They did not believe in the oral tradition or any of those things. These are the ones who are the few, the called, and the chosen. Line up on line, precept on precept. They belong to the tribes of Banu Khazari and Banu Awis. The Banu Khazraz, and these are Israelites who are Khazars, you guys. It's essential to know that the Israelites that was pushed into Assyrian captivity definitely went into Khazaria, Turkey, Uzbekistan, like all of those places. And so the Banu Khazar is a large Joktan Arab tribe. They were also in Medina during Muhammad's era, where there still exists. The Banu existed in multiple Arab countries, including Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. And so it began to mention that in the 2nd century AD, mind you, this was the pre-Islamic exodus of Yemen, where all of these people had to exodus out of Yemen. These were the Banu Khazari, the Banu Aus, and it states that the Israelite chronicles that they went to war against each other a few years before the Prophet Muhammad migrated to Medina. There were 3 Israelite tribes present in Medina at this time, and this is the Banu Qanuk, the Banu Nadir, and the Banu Qurayza. The Israelites were present among these Joktan and Jashan Arabs, were from the tribe of Naphtali and the tribe of Benjamin, meaning that these are the ones that would have been left over from Babylon and Persian captivity. The tribe of the Banu Qanuk was descended from the Israelite patriarch Canuk. His full lineage was given as Canuk ben Amashel ben Mashi ben Yochanan ben Benjamin ben Saran ben Natali ben Eleazar ben Moses. The quotan was Ibn Amshil, Ibn Mashi, Ibn Yoktan. So this is just repeating. So this was the Benjamin tribe. And then you have some princes of Judah, Zebulun, and Naphtali. And they began to say, Thy God hath commanded thy strength, O God, that which because thou hast for us. This is Psalms. Well, I can't read all of this out. So this is going to be Psalm 68, 1 through 35, the entire chapter, so that you guys can see how it talks about that because of the temple at Jerusalem, that they shall bring, this is talking, the princes that shall come out of Egypt and Ethiopia into the holy places. So this is also going to be Isaiah 9, 1 through 7. You could take that down for note. We're going to read part of it when it say, and his name shall be Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. I have a breakdown for each and every one of these words in comparison to Muhammad, but I'm not going into that in this video. But we can clearly see the Prince of Peace and the increase of his government and peace. There shall be no end. I want you to know that the word government is Mizraim, and Mizraim is Egypt. And so then when it says, and the government shall be up on his shoulder, and Mizraim, Egypt, shall be up on his shoulder. And peace, Salam, Islam, to which there is no end. This is the kingdom that will last forever, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and justice for henceforth, even for forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. Isaiah 9, 1 through 7. Let's continue. In the 7th century, the Banu Konuk were living in 2 fortresses in Medina, so on and so forth. And though mostly Arabic names, they were both ethnically and religiously Israelites. They owned no land, earned their living through commerce and craftsmanship, including goldsmithing. The market of the Yathrib was located in the area of the town that the Quaynuk lived. So these were Israelites with Arabic names. In May 622, Muhammad arrived in Yathrib, which is Medina, with a group of his followers who were given shelter by members of the indigenous tribes who came to be known as the Ansir. These are the helpers of Muhammad. He proceeded to set about the establishment as a pact known as the Constitution of Medina between the Muslims, the Ansir, which were those Israelite tribes, and the various Israelite tribes of Yathrib to regulate the matters of governance of the city, as well as the extent of the nature of the intercommunity relation conditions of the pact. According to the traditional Muslim scholars, including boycotting the Quraysh, abstinence from extending in support to them, assistance of one another if attacked by a third party, as well as defending Medina in case of a foreign attack. So the Arabic version of the book of Matthew shows to be a source of the Quran, and this existed before Muhammad was even born. The Quran states that several prior writings constituted holy books given by God to the prophets of the messengers amongst the children of Israel. In the same way, the Quran was revealed to Muhammad, but we know that the Quran was revealed to the Israelites to give to Muhammad. These include the Tawrat, the Tawrat, which is the Torah, believed by Muslims to be given by God to the prophets and messengers amongst the children of Israel. The Zabar, reference to the Psalms, the first chapter, revealed to David, and the Injil revealed to Yehoshua or the Malek. The Quran 5:44. Indeed, we send down the Torah, in which guidance and light of the prophets who submitted or Muslims to God, judged by it for the Israelites, as did the rabbis and the scholars, that which they were instructed of the scriptures of God, and they were witnesses. So do not fear the people, fear me, and do not exchange my verses for a small worldly gain. And whosoever does not judge what God has revealed, then it is those who are disbelievers. So the word Torah or Torah is in the Quran over 136 times, which is the law. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to read all this. The Quran begins to quote some of the scriptures. Quran, the Surah 48, Ahaya 29. It begins to talk about the tree that is planted by the rivers of water in Psalms 1, verses 3 through 9. It also begins to quote Psalms 42, verse 16, Psalms 92, verse 14. The Quran 28:48 through 49 begins to say, basically quoting what Yehoshua said, that if you guys believed in Moses, or if you really read the book of Moses, then you would know about me, because Moses wrote of me. So that's what Muhammad began to state as well. So Muhammad referenced the Torah, Wuwab the Bam. So Abdul ibn Umar stated, a group of Israelites came and invited the apostle, peace be upon him, to Kuf. He visited them at their school. Blue, 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 blue. Okay, leaders of the Ansir, the natives of Medina, who were these Israelites and these Joktan Arabs, who provided Muhammad safe haven after his migration from Mecca, in 622 AD, discussed forwarding them their own candidate out of concern that Muhammad's earlier followers and fellow immigrants from Mecca would ally with their former tribesmen. So they were afraid that these people would revert and then take over Medina, versus honoring the this edict of peace and dual leadership between the Israelite community and the Islamics. And we see that they had a right to feel that way because we see what's taking place today over in the land. Daniel 2 verses 40 through 48. And the fourth kingdom shall come strong as iron. For as much as iron break in pieces and subdue things, and as iron that breaketh all these things, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, told y'all, part of the part is clay, and the part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. But there shall be in it as much strength of the iron, for as much as thou sowest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of the iron and part of the clay, so the kingdom shall partly be strong and partly be broken. This is the Ottoman. It broke, right? In 1923, I believe, or 43, the Ottoman Empire fell, and most of it went back over to Europe, and then the rest of it ended up staying in Saudi Arabia. And in those days, the kings shall the God of heaven set up the kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. It's the same thing that Isaiah 42 says. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all the kingdoms and shall stand forever. Yehoshua prophesied the kingdom transferred to Muhammad and Islam, Matthew 21 and 43. Therefore, say I unto you, the kingdom of God shall be taken from you. This is the scepter passing and given to the nation, bringing forth the fruits thereof. Some Israelite tribes like the Banu Quaynuk and the Banu Nadir initially supported Muhammad, and some Israelites even fought alongside Muhammad. There are accounts of Israelites in the regions like those in him siding with the Muslims against the Byzantine Empire, swearing to defend their city against the Byzantine rule. In the early years of Islam, Muhammad had interactions with the Israelite tribes in Medina, and there were periods of relative harmony, even documented in the Constitution of Medina. Therefore, had they been fighting in Medina, involving mainly its pagan and Israelite inhabitants for around 100 years before 620 AD. So these Israelites in Medina had been trying to get these polytheistics to come under Torah, to come under the edicts of the law, statutes, and commandments 100 years before the Prophet Muhammad ever existed, and they were not able to. Why? Because they did not have the new song and the new law. They were not SHILOH. The occurring slaughters and disagreement over the resulting claims, especially after the Battle of Buthuth, which all the clans had been involved, made it obvious to them that the tribal conceptions of blood, fuel, and eye for eye were no longer workable unless there was one man with the authority to educate and dispute the causes. The delegation from Medina pledged themselves and their fellow citizens to accept Muhammad into their community and to protect him physically as if he were one of their own. And this is Torah being fulfilled, that a stranger is to be treated as one that is native born. After immigrating to Medina, Muhammad established a constitution, establishing a kind of alliance for the federation. That's a quote of the 8 Medinian tribes and Muslim immigrants from Mecca, and specifying the rights and duties of all citizens and relationship of the different communities in Medina, including the Muslim community to the other communities, the Israelites and the people of the book, according to the chroniclers such as Sadal al-Bahadi. This is in 785 to 845 AD after Muhammad. The composition of the population of Medina at the time considered a two supergroup local Arab tribes, the Aus and the Khazaraj, the 8 clans of the 33 other smaller groups among them. Meanwhile, the Israelite tribes consisted of about 20. Muhammad united the Arabian Peninsula, Qadar, the Gentiles, the polytheistics, and pagans under Islamic rule during the Byzantine Empire of Daniel. During the final years of his life, Muhammad sent several armies against the Byzantine Empire and the Ghassanenes in northern Arabia and the Levant, before conquering Mecca in 630 and leading a campaign against some of the Arab pagan tribes close to Mecca, mostly noted in the Taif. The last army led by Muhammad before his death was in the Battle of Tabuk in October 630. By the time he died in 632, Muhammad had managed to unite most of the Arabian Peninsula. This is Isaiah 42, laying the foundation of his consequent Islamic expansion under the caliphates and defining Islamic military jurisprudence, destroying the groves of polytheism. In 628, Muhammad, now 700 followers, attacked the Qubar and the largest Israelite community of the Arabian Peninsula and burned down their date palms, destroying their main source of livelihood. The Israelites then forced to surrender and give up 50% of their harvest as a form of taxation. So they were building groves. These groves were unto Ashereth. Isaiah 42 stated that his law would reach the isles. After the death of Muhammad, his followers continued to conquer the Middle East, both militarily and ideologically. Within 10 years, they conquered the land of Israel, known as Palestine, Syria, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Persia. They advanced across North Africa and in 711 conquered Spain. By the middle of the 8th century, 90% of the world's Israelites were living under Islamic rule. An Israelite prophet fought with Muhammad and died next to him in battle. His name was Prophet Muhammad. He was a wealthy leader of the Tha'laba Israelite tribe that was aligned as one of the three major Israelite tribes during the time of Muhammad. He died in 625 CE. He believed Muhammad to be the Messiah, to be Shiloh, and he recognized him as such, as did the 2nd century Israelites who prophesied the Messiah coming from Ishmael. As for the Rabbi Muhammad and the expected second repatriation, he would have known that just as a decade previous to the Battle of Udad in 625, the Persians had conquered in 614 the land of Israel or Palestine from the Eastern Roman Byzantine Empire. This may well have stimulated in the rabbi's mind his firm expectation that another God's anointed Messiah, another comforter, was at hand, namely the prophet Muhammad. If so, then surely the Israelite population should be in support of his new Shiloh sung or chosen anointed instrument of God. According to this unorthodox rabbi, viewed fighting alongside Muhammad as his personal voluntary fight and his support as monotheism, as well as his witness to the faith and the arrival of one of God's anointed messiahs. Although everyone has heard of the son of David, Messiah, the rabbis also speak of other pre-messianic age figures, including another Elijah and the son of Joseph, who would precede the coming of the son of David. So this is John the Baptist, who was another Elijah, and then the son of Joseph, who was Yehoshua, and the other coming of the son of David, which is Shiloh. The interpretation is not the view of him alone. There is a 9th or 10th century apocalyptic midrash called the Prayer of Rabbi Shimeon ben Yochai. It is the writing in the 2nd century after a vision, that after 40 days and 40 nights, that the Rabbi Shimeon had a vision of the Kenites, or the Roman Empire, followed by a vision of the kingdom of Ishmael, or the Arabs, whom Muhammad descended, who were to succeed the Byzantine Romans. The archangel Metatron, which would be Enoch, who was translated into Metatron, came to this rabbi and told him, the kingdom of the Kenites, who were the future Byzantine Romans, will come to Jerusalem, subdue it, and murder more than 30,000 in it because of the oppression which was the Byzantine, oppressed the Israelites. The blessed Holy One, the Most High, will send the Ishmaelites against them to make war, and as did and deliver the Israelites from their land. This is why when Yehoshua says that the last shall be first and the first shall be last, that word last, when you go back all the way to the etymology right there, it is saying that Yehoshua, or the deliverance, shall be first. Then the kingdom will be established. This is literally the interpretation of it in the proper context and the proper language. So the deliverance of the Israelites had to take place first for the kingdom to be established. When we begin to continue, it begins to say, the anonymous authors of the prayer of Rabbi Shimeon viewed the replacement of the Christian Byzantine Roman Empire by the Muslim Arabs as an act of Elohim. This is due to the fact that these are pagans whom took over the Bible after the death of the last apostle in 100 AD. And the Byzantine Empire followed the Constantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire is where they began to change Yehoshua to the Son of God, where they began to whitewash his images, so on and so forth. So, the Persian army, supported by thousands of Persian Empire Israelites, captured Jerusalem in 614. This event is referred to in the Quran. The Surat al-Rum 32-4. The Romans, or the Byzantine, have been defeated in the nearest land in Syria and in Palestine. But after their defeat, they will overcome the Persians with a few 3 to 9 years. To Allah belongs the command before and after. So it was stated that the Persians took over, but that it was going to be temporary until the kingdom that lasts forever will come. In fact, merely 3 years after the Prophet Muhammad's battle of Udad in 625 AD against the Makkans, the Romans did recapture Jerusalem in 628 from the Persians. In the process, the Byzantine army massacred all the Israelites who had already returned to Jerusalem during the period of Persian. But then, just 1 decade later, armies from the Arabs who would conquer Egypt, from Egypt to Iraq, and displace the Roman Byzantine rulers who regained a short-lived control over the territory.